Want to welcome Dr. Alex Del Carmen. Dr. Del Carmen's been on the program before, and Dr. Del Carmen here is to talk with us tonight to talk about an uptick. It's more than an uptick, 24% increase in shoplifting across the United States at a time when a lot of other crimes have fallen to pre-pandemic levels. Is it all about the economy? Remember, that was Bill Clinton's slogan back, it's the economy, stupid, back in 1992. James Carville talked that way. Is shoplifting related to the economy?
Good evening, and thanks for having me again.
You're
So,
welcome.
many people think that it is the economy. We criminologists look at an array of things that may actually be responsible for the spike in shoplifting cases, for the past 6 months. And some of it may be related to economic reasons, but some of it may also be related to lack of what we call capable guardians, which basically means the absence of police officers, the absence of security guards at stores, and in some cases, the fact that some prosecutors are just not willing to prosecute those quote-unquote minor cases, and therefore they look the other way.
So I'm assuming that many stores, particularly the mom and pop stores, are the ones where shoplifting is going to have a greater impact. Or I assume that the stores like Walmart and Target and the big chain stores across the country, that they kind of build that in. And they also have people, they have more people in those stores. But I'm assuming it's the mom and pop stores that are really feeling the brunt of the impact of this, or am I wrong?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think economically, many of those very small stores, they don't have not only, they have the absence of video cameras, they have the absence of a security guard or two, or someone that is, acting as a quote-unquote undercover shopper. And sometimes they even have the inability to contact law enforcement because they're so busy handling other matters because of the shortage of personnel. And so they're the ones that are affected the most when it comes to these shoplifting cases. But obviously we see the volume in terms of dollar losses with the big stores, right? Like the Targets and the various other stores across the nation where, they become the target given the volume and the amount of money that some of those items cost.
Okay, so this leads me to a second line of questioning, and that is that there's a lot of, and I think about San Francisco, but I assume it's going on in other cities around the country. I go in now to a CVS, and I notice that there's more things that are under lock and key that never were under lock and key before. I mean, electric toothbrushes and things like that. You can't buy an electric toothbrush unless you get one of the store clerks to come and open the display case for you. And I assume that a lot of the shoplifting that has occurred in poorer communities. And my understanding is that a lot of these big chains are closing up in some of these poorer communities. And I read a story today that said that there are now, they talk about, food deserts, supermarket deserts, and now pharmacy deserts, meaning the little community that always needs a store and a pharmacy and maybe a post office. A lot of these stores are disappearing, and people who don't have a car to drive to the mall in the suburbs, now they don't have access to the things that they need for day-to-day life. So there's an impact here. Or are they unrelated?
No, I mean, I think they're related. And what we've seen, to your point, San Francisco is probably the best example to cite, right? Here is a city that, although still beautiful and, wonderful things to see in San Francisco, you go to downtown San Francisco, as my wife and I did some months ago, and you walk the downtown area, and it's completely desolate. I mean, you'll find that some of these big stores, have left. Some of the businesses are no longer occupying some of the buildings. Some of it is because of the pandemic, no question. And many people, as you may recall, moved over to work from home. And a lot of these corporations never, renew the leases because they found it more cost effective to have people off-site working remotely. But you still have the effect of the fact that there are so many thefts and so much lawlessness in some of these areas, in prosecutors that unfortunately, play into politics. They look the other way. And police officers, quite frankly, became frustrated because they were like, well, why am I going to be risking my life to arrest somebody who's shoplifting if the prosecutor is going to tell me that they're not going to prosecute the case? And so, and of course, now we have what we have in some of those cities, which is either chaos or people demanding that those prosecutors be fired and to reinstitute the law.
Well, in San Francisco, the prosecutor was the district attorney out there was recalled. So there are ways in which they can be removed. So how do we turn this situation around? I mean, we can appeal to people's better angels, but that tends not to work. How can we turn it around?
Yeah, well, I think that it's going to be a matter of time before we start seeing some changes. And part of it also is not only the economy, but also the fact that some of these areas need to start, getting filled with businesses again and have that trust effect that we had prior to the pandemic. And, we've seen this in sort of, different cycles in the history of the United States, particularly in the past 50, 60 years, where you've seen some of these cities and some of these urban areas become almost like deserts in the middle of nowhere. And then all of a sudden somebody picks up an investor or a real estate company may actually buy some properties and reinstitute some degree of attractiveness for investors to come back. And before you know it, you have those lively, wonderful communities that we had prior to the pandemic. But, part of it also is, and I don't want to underscore the lack of importance that this has, which is, law enforcement personnel. We are seeing a shortage of cops around the United States, and that does affect, as we call it, the presence of capable guardians, meaning the ability of having people on the lookout that are going to enforce the law. And so it's going to be years before we see this turn around, I'm afraid.
Yeah, matter of fact, at 9 o'clock tonight, during the 9 o'clock hour, we'll be talking with the president of the Boston Police Patrolmen's Association. These are the officers who are on the street dealing with crimes on a day-to-day basis. And we are down a couple of hundred or perhaps more police officers from where we should be in Boston. And I suspect there's a problem around the country as well. My perspective on a lot of these, again, small variety stores or bodegas or small restaurants in communities, they're really the backbone of these communities, and people need to support them. I go out of my way when I have a chance to support a local business or a local restaurant, because if you don't, it's great to have those in your community, and if you don't, they go away. Could there be some sort of a public service campaign which would make people realize that you're stealing when you shoplift from a small mom and pop store, or for that matter, when you do any shoplifting, you're hurting your own community in the long run. Yeah, you might have a carton of free cigarettes, or you might have a couple of candy bars, but the damage that you do in the long run to your community far outweighs the minor benefit that you receive when you walk out the door without paying for something.
And boy, that would be wonderful for us to institute some sort of moral compass, right, among some of these folks that go out there and do this, almost sometimes for a living. We've seen in stores where they're coming in, 20 or 30 at a time, and they just basically rob everything that is accessible to them from the street. And before you know it, they're being sold on eBay for half the price, and they're taking people's jobs away. They're increasing the prices for those of us that go out to the store and legally and lawfully consume goods. It's really sad. And one thing that I've learned over 27 years being a criminologist is that unfortunately not everyone has the same point of departure when it comes to that level of consciousness and morality that we wish people had as it relates to harming others for absolutely no reason at all except to take advantage of them. And I wish that were the case. But I will say to you that communities that are closely knitted, and Boston is one of my favorite cities. In fact, even though I reside in Dallas, my daughter is at BU Law, and my sister is a medical doctor there. In fact, I'll be out there tomorrow night in Boston. Great city, great dynamics, great police department. Unfortunately, it has not been spared as other cities have, with the lack of officers and the fact that, some crimes are going up. And one of the cities that this particular study covered, as it looked at 32 cities across the U.S., looking at shoplifting, it was the city of Boston. And unfortunately, shoplifting is going up in your city. and will likely continue until we have a moment of turning this thing around.
Well, Dr. Carmen, congratulate your daughter. I'm an alumnus of Boston University.
Oh,
Law
wonderful.
School. Yeah, last century. It's been a while, but very active. And ask your daughter, it's as a BU. Is she there now? Is she starting, or is she in her second or third year?
No, she's in her last year.
Okay. Well,
yeah,
when you see her, remember this and just say, go check out the award winners of what's called the Silver Shingle Award. It's the highest award you can get as a Boston University Law School alumnus, and she'll see my name listed. So it was 1988 when I received that award.
And we will look for it together because I'll be out there this weekend.
Yeah, there's probably somewhere where it's engraved in something that hangs on a wall, but she can find it. Congratulations to you and your family and to your daughter, and it's always great to talk to another member of the BU Law School family. Thanks so much, Dr. Carmen.
Yes, sir. Thank you.